Coincidence is a lie you've been told your entire life. They said some things just happen, chance, randomness, probability. But deep down, you felt otherwise. That number appearing everywhere. The person calling just as you thought of them. The song lyric hitting exactly when you needed it. You brushed it off because you were trained to believe there's nothing beneath the surface. But there is, and it's been guiding you the whole time. These moments aren't random, they're messages from an intelligent field trying to reach you. Carl Jung called it synchronicity, meaningful coincidence, that reveals the universe as alive, aware, and constantly communicating. This video exposes why you were taught to ignore the signs, how quantum physics now validates what mystics always knew, and the practical steps to recognize when reality is speaking directly to you.
Coincidence is a lie you've been told your entire life. They told you some things just happen, that it's all chance, randomness, probability. But deep down, you've felt otherwise. You've had moments that felt too precise to be accidental, glimpses of something intelligent woven into the ordinary, a number repeated everywhere you looked, a person calling just as you thought of them, a song lyric hitting at the exact moment you needed to hear it. And still, you brushed it off, because you were trained to, conditioned to believe there's nothing beneath the surface of reality. But there is, and it's been guiding you the whole time. These moments you've called coincidences are not random. They are messages, clues, markers from something greater trying to reach you. This isn't about superstition or wishful thinking. This is about seeing reality as it truly is, alive, aware, and always communicating. The question is, are you finally ready to listen? You weren't born blind to meaning. As a child, you noticed everything: patterns in clouds, shapes in shadows, strange timings that made you pause. You felt wonder without needing an explanation. You sensed things without being told. But over time, that instinct was buried. Bit by bit, you were taught to stop believing in things that couldn't be measured. You were told there's no such thing as a sign. That seeing connections where none objectively exist is just a glitch in your brain, a bias, a flaw, something to correct. School taught you that the world is made up of hard facts and solid rules. Science, they said, only works through cause and effect. If you couldn't prove it in a lab, it wasn't real. And so you stopped trusting the moments that whispered something more. You stopped asking why certain things happened at just the right time. You stopped looking for meaning in what you couldn't control. And yet the signs never stopped showing up. The same numbers, the same names, the same themes repeating, like hidden code written into the fabric of your life. But when you brought it up, they called it coincidence. And you believed them because belief isn't always a choice. It's often a byproduct of survival. And in a world that punishes strangeness, it's safer to stay silent than to sound crazy. Safer to bury your questions than risk standing out. So you learn to wear the blindfold. You learn to trust logic over intuition. You learn to silence the part of you that still sensed something more. The system you were raised in thrives on predictability. It needs you to follow a script. Stay focused on what's visible, provable, monetizable. If you wander off into mystery, if you pause to reflect on something that can't be quantified, you become harder to manage, and that's a problem for them. So they taught you to shut it down, to stop trusting the deep alignment you occasionally felt, to laugh off signs as accidents, to scoff at synchronicity. They told you it's just your brain playing tricks on you. But here's the truth. Your brain isn't tricking you. It's trying to wake you up. You're not imagining the pattern. You're noticing the code. The idea of synchronicity was never meant to be mainstream, because once you see the world through that lens, you stop playing by the rules. You begin to notice when the universe is nudging you, calling you, aligning your path in ways no one else sees, and suddenly, you stop feeling like a victim of chaos. You start realizing you're part of something far more intelligent, something ancient, deliberate, and deeply personal. That doesn't mean every coincidence is a divine message. It means you're no longer living blind. You've stepped out of the illusion that life is a string of random events and into the awareness that every moment might carry meaning if you're willing to look closer. The reason you've forgotten how to do that isn't because you lost the ability. It's because the world trained it out of you. But even training can be undone. This isn't about learning something new. It's about remembering what you already knew before they taught you to forget. You were never meant to sleepwalk through your own life. You were meant to notice the trail of signs left just for you and follow them towards something real. Carl Jung once said, "Synchronicity is an ever-present reality for those who have eyes to see." He didn't mean that metaphorically. He meant it literally. Jung, one of the most influential minds in psychology, wasn't just a thinker. He was a mapmaker of the soul, someone who saw what lay beneath the surface of what we call reality. And when he introduced the term synchronicity, he wasn't trying to explain away strange coincidences. He was revealing a fundamental principle of existence, that the inner world and the outer world are not separate, but mirror images of the same underlying intelligence. Jung noticed something curious in his patients. People would often experience deeply meaningful events that defied logic or probability. A woman describing a dream about a golden scarab, only for a real scarab beetle to tap against the window in that exact moment. Or a man facing a life decision who kept encountering the same symbol in unrelated contexts, a song, a billboard, a dream. Jung realized these were not hallucinations or fantasy. They were messages, signs that something deeper was orchestrating the intersections between mind and matter. He called it meaningful coincidence, but it was never about luck. It was about alignment. Synchronicities don't just happen at random. They appear when the psyche is activated, when the unconscious is trying to break through the noise of everyday life. And that's where archetypes come in. Jung believed our subconscious minds are wired with symbolic patterns, universal themes like the mother, the hero, the shadow. These archetypes aren't just found in stories and myths. They're found in dreams, behaviors, even the people we attract. They shape our perception of the world and draw certain experiences toward us. And when something in the external world triggers an archetype, it's not just a reflection, it's a call, a moment where reality reaches back. This is why synchronicities feel so intense. They're not random, they're exact. They appear when something within us is being activated, surfaced, or shifted. And the more conscious we become of these inner forces, the more visible the outer reflections become. Think about the times in your life when everything seemed to align. You thought of someone and they appeared. You had a question and the answer came in an unexpected form. You felt lost, and suddenly a symbol, a number, a phrase seemed to guide you back. These moments aren't anomalies. They're access points, invitations to deeper awareness. But we've been trained to dismiss them, to believe that if we can't explain something, it must not be real. Jung didn't accept that. He saw the psyche and the world as two halves of one system. The conscious mind projects meaning, and the unconscious responds through symbols. The world then becomes a mirror of the inner landscape, not metaphorically, but energetically, synchronistically. This is not magic. It's not wishful thinking. It's an ancient, intuitive truth that science is only beginning to catch up with. Reality is not a machine, it's a language, and every synchronicity is a sentence written in it. What Jung began to uncover was a radical truth, that you are not a separate observer of life, but a participant in a living pattern, one that is both psychological and cosmic. Every thought you have, every emotion you carry, every image that arises in your dreams, they all interact with a deeper field of intelligence, and that field responds. When you step into alignment with your inner truth, the world outside begins to align with you. That's not ego, that's resonance, that's synchronicity. This is the original code of meaning, not imposed from the outside, but awakened from within. When you understand this, your life stops being a string of disconnected events and starts becoming a story written by your own soul, shaped by archetypes, mirrored by reality. Jung didn't just define synchronicity. He revealed the architecture of connection. The question now is, will you learn to read it? The universe doesn't speak in words. It speaks in patterns, symbols, and timing. And if you're paying attention, it speaks constantly. Most people walk through life believing they're alone in their thoughts, that the world is indifferent to their struggles or questions. But those who begin to awaken know better. They begin to notice that when they're at a crossroads, a message arrives. When they're breaking down, a breakthrough appears. And when they're about to turn away from their path, something subtle but undeniable calls them back. That something is synchronicity, and it is the spiritual language of the universe. This language isn't heard with the ears or seen with the eyes, it's felt. It shows up as that strange knowing that something is significant, even if you can't explain why. It's the way a book falls open to the exact page you needed, or the way a stranger's words echo the thought that's been haunting you all week. These are not hallucinations. They're not fantasies. They're spiritual contact points, brief but profound confirmations that reality is more than what you've been told. Across every spiritual tradition, there's a belief that the universe communicates through signs. In ancient Egypt, dreams and omens were considered sacred messages. In Hinduism, divine timing is known as kala, not just chronological time, but a moment imbued with meaning. Indigenous cultures around the world speak of nature as a conscious force, animals, weather, and landscapes as guides rather than background noise. Even the Abrahamic traditions carry the theme, angels appearing at just the right moment, visions and symbols directing people toward their divine task. The language may differ, but the message is the same. You are not wandering through a dead world. You are in constant dialogue with a living one. Synchronicities often appear during spiritual awakenings, especially when your old life begins to dissolve and something new tries to emerge. It's no coincidence that people report weird signs when they're about to leave a toxic relationship, start a creative pursuit, or walk away from a life that no longer fits. The more you align with your authentic path, the louder the universe speaks. But not because it suddenly turns on it's been speaking all along. You just became quiet enough to hear it. And still, many people ignore these signs, not because they don't believe, but because they don't trust themselves. They doubt their intuition. They rationalize the message away because it doesn't come in a form that fits logic. But spiritual language doesn't speak in formulas. It speaks in resonance. It speaks in timing. It speaks in dreams, in songs, in déjà vu, in the subtle electricity of a moment that feels too exact to be random. And when you learn to stop asking, "Is this real?" and start asking, "What is this showing me?" that's when the language reveals itself. Sometimes, the signs are gentle nudges. Other times, they're wake-up calls that shake you to the core. A missed flight that prevents disaster. A sudden illness that forces you to slow down. A loss that strips away your false identity so you can find who you really are. These aren't punishments. They're recalibrations. The soul's way of realigning you when you've veered off track. Not all synchronicities feel good. Some are painful. But even the painful ones carry messages. Change is needed. Evolution is calling. Growth is overdue. When you begin to honor synchronicity as communication, not superstition, you start moving differently in the world. You start asking for guidance and listening for the reply. You start recognizing that every day, in ways big and small, something greater is walking with you, whispering through your life, arranging moments you don't have to understand in order to trust. And that trust becomes your compass, not because it guarantees safety, but because it reconnects you to a deeper intelligence than fear can ever offer. You were never meant to walk this path alone. You were always meant to dance with the invisible. You were always meant to wake up in the middle of an ordinary day and suddenly realize it was never ordinary at all. Most people believe that the world happens to them, That reality is some external force fixed and indifferent, and all we can do is react. But this belief is an illusion, one that keeps you locked in a state of passive existence. The truth is far more intimate and far more powerful. Your consciousness shapes your reality. The outer world doesn't just reflect random events. It reflects you. Not the superficial you, not the mask you wear to get through the day, but the real you, the one beneath the noise. Synchronicities are not accidents. They are feedback. Your inner state is always being mirrored, echoed, confirmed, or challenged by the universe around you. When you begin to realize that your thoughts, emotions, and intentions are not private experiences but energetic broadcasts, everything changes. You understand why certain people show up at certain times, why the same situations keep repeating themselves until you face the lesson, and why moments of clarity seem to coincide with external breakthroughs. The line between coincidence and creation starts to dissolve, and you stop feeling like a spectator and begin to step into the role you were always meant to play: conscious participant. This doesn't mean that every fleeting thought instantly reshapes the world around you, but your sustained focus, your emotional energy, your belief system, they act like a magnet. They influence what you see, what you notice, what you attract, and what you interpret. If you're constantly focused on fear, life will reflect reasons to be afraid. If you're anchored in curiosity and presence, synchronicities become more visible because your awareness is tuned to them. Your perception is the filter through which meaning is either revealed or hidden. The more aligned you become within, the more aligned your outer world becomes. This is why major life shifts often coincide with an increase in synchronicities. When people begin healing their trauma, pursuing their soul work, or breaking free from societal scripts, they start noticing strange alignments, signs that they're on the right path. And quantum physics doesn't stop there. It tells us that time itself is not what we think it is. This isn't just the brain seeking patterns. It's the energetic field responding to a new signal. Your consciousness is an instrument, and when it plays in harmony with your true self, life starts to harmonize around you. This also explains why synchronicities often come in waves. They cluster around moments of decision, transformation, or awakening. They're like road markers on a spiritual map you forgot you were carrying. And the map doesn't lead you somewhere random. It leads you deeper into alignment with your essence. Every synchronicity is a reflection of something inside you, a belief shifting, a truth emerging, a fear dissolving. When you honor these moments, you're not just following signs, you're entering a dialogue with the universe. But here's the part that most people miss. If you ignore these signals long enough, they stop showing up. Not because they aren't there, but because you've dulled your awareness to them. The more you dismiss, deny, or rationalize away these experiences, the less available they become to you. Synchronicities require your participation. They are not passive events. They are interactive. They want your attention, your reflection, your willingness to be changed. Because that's what they're here for, not to entertain you, but to evolve you. Your consciousness is not a side effect of your life. It is the architect of it. And synchronicity is the language it uses to show you where the walls are misaligned or the structure incomplete. When you start listening to this language, you stop chasing clarity and start creating it. You begin to experience moments not as random, but as exact, timed not by accident, but by resonance. This is why presence is so essential. Because when you're scattered, reactive, or disconnected, you miss the signs. But when you're grounded and open, you start to see how everything is connected. The person you just bumped into, the sentence you randomly read, the impulse you felt but dismissed. They were all part of something bigger trying to get your attention. Consciousness doesn't just reside in your mind. It pulses through reality itself. And when yours begins to align with that deeper rhythm, synchronicity becomes your compass, not just a sign of meaning, but a confirmation that you've begun to walk in truth. For centuries, science and spirituality were kept in separate rooms, one dealing with facts, the other with faith. But in recent decades, that wall has started to crumble. And at the center of that collapse is quantum physics, a field of study that, ironically, sounds more mystical than anything you'd hear in a temple. Because when you peer into the very fabric of existence, when you zoom in past the atoms and into the quantum field, something extraordinary is revealed. Reality is not solid, it's not fixed, it's not even local. It is fluid, interconnected, and deeply responsive. In other words, everything spiritual traditions have been whispering for thousands of years, science is now beginning to shout. One of the most important ideas in quantum physics is non-locality, the fact that two particles, once connected, can remain in sync no matter how far apart they are. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. But spooky or not, it's real. Change one particle, and its pair responds instantly, even if it's on the other side of the universe. There is no signal, no delay, no physical link. Just instant correlation that breaks everything we thought we knew about time, space, and separation. And it opens a door. If particles can communicate across vast distances, why not people? Why not thoughts? Why not consciousness itself? Synchronicity begins to make more sense in this light. When two seemingly unrelated events happen with meaningful timing, they may not be unrelated at all. They may be entangled not by physical connection, but by resonance. Just like entangled particles, events in our lives may mirror one another not through cause and effect, but through an invisible field that connects all things. This is where quantum mechanics and mysticism shake hands, because both suggest that the world is not made up of isolated objects, but of relationships, vibrations, probabilities, waves of possibility. You are not a fixed entity moving through time. You are a field of energy and awareness, interacting with a larger field of potential. And when you shift your frequency through thought, intention, emotion, you don't just change how you feel. You change what you attract. You change what finds you. Synchronicities, then, are not glitches in the matrix. They are the matrix flexing. They are reality, responding to your inner world, aligning variables you can't consciously control to deliver an experience that breaks your pattern of separation. The future and the past may exist simultaneously as different slices of a greater whole. This echoes spiritual teachings that speak of divine timing not as something linear, but as something precise, like a frequency you have to match to access the next step. Ever had the feeling you were in the right place at the right time, as if the moment was waiting for you? That's not fantasy. That's physics catching up with spiritual truth. Even the famous double slit experiment, where observing a particle changes its behavior, points to something radical. The observer doesn't just witness reality. The observer influences it. You don't just perceive the world, you participate in shaping it. This is the foundation of conscious creation, and it's also the heartbeat of synchronicity. When your internal observer changes, when your awareness deepens, when your beliefs shift, when your focus clarifies, the external events around you start to organize differently. The puzzle pieces begin to move. The patterns start aligning. The universe begins to speak. But here's the catch. You have to be awake enough to notice. Because synchronicities are subtle. They don't demand your attention. They invite it. They don't shout. They whisper. And in a world addicted to noise, silence becomes sacred. Stillness becomes power. That's where you begin to notice what others miss. That's where the mundane starts to shimmer with meaning. Science is not here to kill mystery. It's beginning to validate it. The quantum field is not just theoretical. It is the space you're breathing in right now. The same field that connects stars and atoms, connects thoughts and outcomes, dreams and events, you and everything else. And once you understand that, synchronicity is no longer strange. It becomes natural, expected, even essential. Because when physics meets mysticism, the message is clear. You are more connected than you were ever taught to believe. And life, as strange as it seems, is paying attention. One of the most misunderstood ideas about synchronicity is that it somehow means everything is predetermined, that if life is sending you signs, then your path must already be written. But that's not how it works. Synchronicity doesn't eliminate free will, it illuminates it. It's not a script you're doomed to follow. It's a conversation you're invited to join. Every synchronicity is a choice point, not a command. It's the universe laying a breadcrumb in your path, offering a moment of alignment, and asking, will you follow this, or will you ignore it? Time is not as linear as we've been led to believe. We think of the future as something ahead of us, the past as something behind us, and the present as the fleeting space in between. But mystics and physicists alike suggest that time is layered, multidimensional, a vast field rather than a straight line. In that field, your soul isn't just moving forward, it's interacting with patterns, probabilities, and potentials that already exist. And synchronicities often arise from this strange dance between timelines. A future version of you might be pulling you forward through signs. A past decision might echo forward, creating moments of meaning in the present. And somehow, all of it converges exactly when it's supposed to. This is why some moments feel electric, not just important, but charged, as if the fabric of reality momentarily thinned and something deeper broke through. Maybe it's a conversation that seems to change everything, or an encounter that feels predestined, or a coincidence so precise it sends chills through your body. Those are not random. They're thresholds, points in time, where your soul aligns with the path it's been trying to walk. And in those moments, you are not being forced, you are being offered. Free will still lives at the center of it all. You can ignore the signs, you can turn away, you can rationalize, delay, dismiss, and the universe won't punish you for that. But it also won't stop trying. It will keep nudging you. It will keep rearranging the scenery. It will keep placing signs in your path until you finally stop and ask, what is this trying to show me? And when you do, everything shifts. Because your awareness is the key that unlocks the pattern. Destiny is not a fixed outcome. It's a frequency. It's not a rigid path, but a resonance. When you move closer to who you really are, you naturally start to align with people, opportunities, and events that match that deeper vibration. Synchronicity increases not because something outside of you is pulling the strings, but because you are finally vibrating in harmony with your own truth. You're no longer swimming upstream against your own current. You've started to flow with it. Think about those moments in your life when everything seemed to fall into place effortlessly, when doors opened without force, when help arrived before you even asked, when a choice, however risky, felt strangely right. Those moments are not flukes. They are signals, evidence that you are operating within your soul's design. And the more you tune into those moments, the more they begin to multiply. But don't confuse ease with passivity. Synchronicity still asks something of you. It asks you to choose, to be conscious, to take the leap even when it doesn't make sense. Sometimes the sign will come, but it's up to you to follow it. It's not about being passive in the face of fate. It's about being an active participant in a dialogue with the universe. And that's what makes synchronicity so powerful. It doesn't remove responsibility. It enhances it. Because when you recognize that life is speaking to you moment by moment, you realize you're not waiting to be saved. You're being invited to co-create. This is where destiny and free will meet. Not in opposition, but in harmony. Destiny sets the coordinates. Free will chooses the route. And synchronicity is the flashing light that tells you you're on track. When you learn to trust those signals not as answers, but as allies, you begin to walk a path that feels less like wandering and more like remembering. Because somewhere deep in your being, you already know where you're meant to go. The signs just help you get there. There are moments in life that feel like checkpoints, like you've arrived at a significant mile marker in a journey you didn't realize you were on. You stop, even if just internally, and feel something click. A quiet recognition, a strange clarity. Sometimes It's the end of a cycle. Sometimes, it's the beginning of a new one. But either way, it doesn't feel like a coincidence. It feels guided. That's not an illusion. That's the soul speaking through synchronicity. These moments are not random. They're part of the navigational system built into your life. If you pay attention, they'll take you exactly where you're meant to go. Checkpoint synchronicities are the ones that interrupt your usual rhythm. They often come when you've outgrown something but haven't yet stepped into what's next. A career that once felt fulfilling begins to feel empty. A relationship starts to stretch thin. Or your routines, once comfortable, now feel like a cage. You try to keep moving forward, but everything slows down. Nothing flows. And just when you're about to force something or give up altogether, it happens. A phone call, a sentence overheard, a random chance meeting, a book you pick up without knowing why. And in that moment, something inside you shifts. The sign wasn't loud, but it was clear. And for a brief moment, you remember who you are. These checkpoint synchronicities are not only comforting, they're precise. They arrive at the exact moment you need them. Not before, not after. They're timed to your soul's growth, not your ego's schedule. And often, they come with a choice: to keep repeating the familiar or to step into the unknown. The signs won't force you. They'll simply offer a mirror, a map, or a message, and the decision remains yours. But if you've been listening, really listening, you'll know what to do. What makes these events powerful is that they feel both external and internal at once. The outer world delivers something, a symbol, a sequence, a face, and it lands inside you like a revelation. You feel recognized by reality. Not in a way that makes sense to others, but in a way that makes sense to you. That's because these signs speak the language of your own consciousness. They don't need to be universal. They need to be personal. That's how you know they're real. Some people wait for these moments like lightning bolts, rare and miraculous. But the truth is, they're always happening. What changes is your ability to see them. The more you cultivate self-awareness, the more fluent you become in the language of synchronicity. You start recognizing patterns that once felt invisible. You stop needing certainty and start trusting alignment. And when that shift happens, the signs don't just show up in crisis. They become a daily rhythm, a gentle hum beneath the noise, guiding you home. Think of your life as a map, designed by your soul. Not a map with fixed roads and rigid destinations, but a dynamic field that adjusts in real time as you grow, choose, and awaken. The synchronicities are your checkpoints. They don't tell you where to go step by step, but they show you where you are. And sometimes, that's all you need. A confirmation, a cosmic nod, a moment that says, yes, this is the path. In a world obsessed with logic and certainty, these subtle confirmations feel like magic. But they're not magic. They're reminders of your direction, of your alignment, of your connection to something greater than yourself. And here's the most important part. The more you act on these signs, the stronger they get. Not because the universe rewards you, but because you've attuned your awareness. You've said yes to the dialogue. You've started walking with life, not against it. And life responds. It always does. Because you were never meant to find your way by force. You were meant to find it through awareness, through resonance, through moments that may look small to the outside world, but to your soul are everything. Synchronicity isn't something you chase. It's something you notice. It's already there, woven into the fabric of your life, like a hidden thread waiting to be seen. But most people miss it because they're too distracted, too busy, too stuck in their heads to hear the subtle whisper beneath the noise. To truly experience synchronicity as a guiding force, you have to tune yourself like an instrument. You have to slow down, become still, and begin paying attention in a way that most people have forgotten how to do. This isn't about superstition, it's about awareness. And awareness is a skill, a practice. The more you cultivate it, the more the signs begin to speak. It starts with presence. Synchronicities don't live in the past, and they don't wait in the future. They arrive in the now. So if your mind is constantly running ahead or looping behind, you'll miss them. The first step is to reconnect with where you are, not where you think you should be, not where everyone else is going, just here, now. Because signs show up in the real world, not the imaginary one you build in your head. They appear in moments of stillness, when the mind quiets just long enough for the soul to speak. That's why people often experience synchronicity while walking in nature, meditating, or even in the calm after a storm. Something clears, and suddenly the world feels alive with meaning. Start paying attention to what repeats, what symbols keep showing up, what phrases do you keep hearing from different people, what dreams return again and again. Repetition is one of the universe's favorite tools. It's not trying to confuse you, it's trying to wake you up. And the more you begin to document these patterns, the clearer they become. A journal isn't just for memories, it's a lens. When you write down synchronicities, however small, you begin to see the invisible lines that connect them. You begin to track your own evolution in symbols. You begin to realize that life is not random. It's responsive. Ritual helps too. You don't need crystals or incense unless they hold meaning for you. What you do need is a way to return to yourself, a space where you can pause, ask for guidance, and listen. Maybe that's 5 minutes in the morning with your thoughts. Maybe it's lighting a candle and breathing before making a big decision. What matters is not the form, it's the intention. Synchronicity is a two-way relationship. If you want the signs to speak louder, show that you're listening. And don't underestimate the power of asking. Ask the universe for a sign, not to test it, but to tune to it. Be clear in your request, and then let go of needing the answer to come in a specific way. Signs rarely arrive in the form we expect. More often, they come through back doors, through things we almost overlooked. That's part of the magic. You think you're waiting for one thing, and life gives you another more perfect than you could have designed. And finally, trust the feeling. You know the one. That strange spark in your chest when something just clicks. That sense that something small means something big. That is not delusion. That is resonance. That is your inner world recognizing its own reflection in the outer one. And when you begin to honor that feeling, when you let it guide you without demanding it to explain itself, you begin to walk in alignment, not because you have all the answers, but because you've learned how to ask better questions and how to listen for the reply. In the comments, drop one word that captures the energy you're stepping into today. Trust, flow, abundance, clarity. Your word matters. Let it be a quantum seed you plant, not just here, but in the field itself. Building a synchronicity practice isn't about controlling life. It's about surrendering to the conversation that's already happening. It's about becoming sensitive to the unseen architecture of your experiences. And once you start, you'll never be able to unsee it. The world will never again look random. It will look like a field of meaning, alive with direction, purpose, and mystery. And you'll walk through it differently, not faster, not with more certainty, but with presence, with trust, with a quiet knowing that you are exactly where you're meant to be. And the signs? They'll be there when you need them. There comes a point where synchronicity stops feeling like an occasional occurrence and starts to feel like a natural state of being, not because the signs become more frequent, but because you become more awake. You no longer need fireworks to feel guided. You no longer second-guess the inner tug that tells you to pause, to move, to speak, to wait. You've trained yourself to listen, and in that listening, a new way of living emerges. One that isn't based on control, prediction, or fear, but on alignment, presence, and trust. This is where synchronicity stops being a phenomenon and becomes a philosophy, a way of life, rooted in deep relationship with yourself and the intelligence of the universe. Living this way doesn't mean you have all the answers. It means you've stopped pretending that you need them. You no longer chase certainty like a drug. You recognize that the real power lies in being attuned, in being available to the mystery. You start waking up in the morning and asking not just, what do I need to do today? But what is life asking of me today? That small shift changes everything. It shifts you from being a passive consumer of experience to an active co-creator. You start noticing beauty in places you once rushed past. You begin seeing meaning in moments others call mundane, and you carry yourself differently, not with arrogance, but with reverence. Because you know you're in dialogue with something vast and sacred, and that knowing humbles you. When synchronicity becomes a way of life, decision-making changes. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop settling for what doesn't resonate. You start choosing based on alignment rather than fear. And when you can't see the full path, you trust the next step. Because that's how the path reveals itself. One step at a time, one sign at a time, one small act of trust after another. You begin to build a life that doesn't just look good on the outside, but feels true on the inside. A life that is guided, not driven. This kind of life isn't loud. It's not always obvious to others. From the outside, you might still look like someone going to work, drinking coffee, paying bills. But internally, everything is different. You move from a different place. You respond to a different rhythm. And slowly, others notice. They feel something in your presence. They ask how you stay calm in chaos, how you know when to take risks, how you make peace with the unknown. And maybe you'll tell them the truth. You stopped fighting the current, and you started listening to the signs. This way of life doesn't make you immune to pain. It doesn't exempt you from challenge, but it gives you a compass in the storm. It reminds you that even when everything seems uncertain, there are patterns trying to find you. There is guidance trying to reach you. And if you stay present, you'll always know what to do next. Not because it makes sense on paper, but because it feels aligned in your soul. The story we've been told is that life is random, that we're alone, that meaning is something we impose onto a dead universe. But that story is crumbling. And in its place, something ancient and true is rising, a deeper story, where life is not separate from us, but speaking to us in every moment. Through timing, through feeling, through symbols, dreams, and strange alignments. Through the soft pulse of synchronicity, guiding us back to ourselves. If you want to keep living asleep, chasing empty goals, ignoring the call, of course you can, but you'll always feel the ache, that quiet sense that something is missing. But when you choose to live in rhythm with the mystery, to follow the signs, to surrender to the dialogue, you don't just find your path, you find yourself. Not the version of you shaped by expectation, but the real one, the one who knows, the one who remembers. So now I ask you, what if the change you've been waiting for is waiting for you to finally stop waiting? What if your next timeline is watching you right now, waiting for the signal that says, I'm ready, let's collapse the distance? If that resonates, leave a comment below, sharing your experience, your intention, or simply your affirmation. Let this space be more than a video. Let it be a frequency portal. Let your words here become anchors in the quantum field. And as you scroll through, notice you are not alone. We are a field, a wave, a movement, and your coherence strengthens the whole. If this video activated something in you, consider subscribing not just for content, but for connection. If you're a conscious creator, hit like and subscribe. This is not just a channel, this is a community of conscious creators, learning to live in coherence with the reality they know is possible. Hit subscribe and the bell icon. This channel is a sanctuary for those who know the universe is listening, for those who are ready to become what they've been calling in. You are not becoming powerful. You already are. You are not learning how to manifest. You're remembering how reality responds to you. And the moment you stop chasing and start aligning, that's when manifestation becomes effortless. And that's when it gets magical. Make sure you share this video with your loved ones. Remember, you're not just sharing, you're spreading transformation. And that energy will help you manifest what you commented earlier. Send this to that one friend who really needs to hear this, you know the one. Sharing this might just change someone's whole week. be that person. Like if you felt it, share it with someone who needs it, and comment, "I understood it," to lock it in. Oh, and subscribe, because this is just the beginning.